The silver ship moved through space like a gentle breeze. Inside, Captain Zextar looked at his screen with excitement. His crew had been traveling for months to reach this small yellow star. The Galactic Council had sent them to check if any smart life lived here. "Captain, we are getting close to the third planet," said his science officer, Dr. Velnari. Her blue skin glowed softly as she worked at her controls. "The planet has water and air. Perfect for life," Zextar nodded. In his 300 years of life, he had found many new worlds. Most were empty. Some had simple animals. Very few had beings smart enough to talk. "Sir, I'm picking up signals," called out the communications officer. "They are coming from the planet." "These signals look complex." The bridge fell quiet. Complex signals meant smart life. This was a big discovery. "Put the signals on the main screen," Zextar ordered. The screen lit up with moving pictures. The crew watched in wonder as they saw strange two-legged creatures walking around. The beings had no fur, no scales, just smooth skin. They wore colored coverings over their bodies. "Fascinating," whispered Dr. Velnari. "They seem peaceful. Look how they interact with their young." The crew watched humans playing in parks, working in offices, and eating together. Everything looked normal. These creatures seemed like any other civilized species. "Try to contact them," Zextar said. "Use the standard greeting." The communications officer sent out a message of peace in simple pictures and math. Within hours, they got a response. The humans had answered with their own pictures and numbers. First contact was a success. For 3 days, both sides exchanged information. The humans seemed friendly and curious. They sent pictures of their cities, their art, and their families. The council ship sent back images of other worlds and peaceful alien species. Then something went wrong. Dr. Velnari was watching human broadcasts when she saw something that made her blood freeze. On her screen, humans were hitting each other with their fists. Not just hitting, they were enjoying it. Crowds of other humans were cheering and screaming with excitement. "Captain," she called out in a shaky voice. "You need to see this." Zextar looked at the screen. 2 humans were in a ring, punching each other until blood ran from their faces. The crowd was going wild with joy. One human fell down and did not get up. The other human raised his arms in victory while thousands cheered. "By the stars," Zextar whispered. "They fight for entertainment, but it got worse. Much worse." The next broadcast showed humans throwing themselves off tall cliffs with only thin ropes tied to their legs. They screamed as they fell, but when they bounced back up, they were laughing and shouting with happiness. "They jumped to almost certain death for fun," Dr. Velnari said, her voice getting higher. "What kind of species does this?" Then they saw humans racing vehicles at deadly speeds, crashing into walls and flipping through the air. The drivers climbed out of the wreckage and smiled for cameras. Some had broken bones, but they acted like this was normal. The science officer's hands shook as she changed channels. Every new broadcast showed more insane behavior. Humans climbing mountains where one wrong step meant death. Humans diving deep underwater with sharks that could eat them. Humans running toward angry bulls that had sharp horns. "Look at this," the communications officer said in horror. He had found human military training videos. Soldiers were crawling through mud while others shot weapons over their heads. They were jumping out of flying vehicles thousands of feet above the ground. They practiced fighting with knives in their bare hands. The worst part was how they trained their young. Human children as small as 5 years old were learning to fight. They called it sports, but to the alien crew it looked like combat training. These tiny humans were hitting each other with sticks, tackling each other to the ground, and competing to hurt each other the most. "They are raising an army," Dr. Velnari said, backing away from her screen. "Every human child is being trained as a warrior." Captain Zextar felt sick. In all his years of exploration, he had never found a species like this. Most intelligent life forms were peaceful. They solved problems with words, not violence. They avoided danger, not seek it out for fun. But humans were different. Humans seemed to love danger. They seemed to enjoy pain. They seemed to think violence was entertainment. "Sir, incoming message from the human government," the communications officer reported. "They want to meet with us in person." Everyone on the bridge froze. The humans wanted a face-to-face meeting. After seeing what these creatures did for fun, the idea of being in the same room with them was terrifying. "What should we tell them, Captain?" asked Dr. Velnari. Zextar thought carefully. The Galactic Council had rules about new species. Usually, peaceful contact led to trade and friendship. But these humans were clearly not like other species. They were violent, dangerous, and seemed to enjoy suffering. Tell them we need time to prepare, Zextar said finally. And send an urgent message to the council. We need guidance. Dr. Velnari worked quickly to prepare her report. She classified humans as a Class 7 Deathworld species. This was the highest danger rating possible. She wrote about their violent entertainment, their dangerous sports, and their military training of children. The most disturbing part of her report was about human psychology. Based on the broadcast, humans seemed to have what she called catastrophic psychological instability. They actively sought out situations that would kill them, and they enjoyed it when others got hurt. Captain, the report is ready, she said. I recommend immediate quarantine of this system. Zextar read the report and agreed. These humans were too dangerous to be allowed into galactic civilization. They would probably try to turn other peaceful species into warriors like themselves. Or worse, they might see other aliens as new opponents to fight. The communication to the Galactic Council was sent with highest priority. Within hours, the response came back. The Council voted unanimously to quarantine the Sol system. No ships were allowed in or out. Humanity would be isolated until they became more civilized. The alien ship quietly moved away from Earth. The crew said goodbye to the strange, violent humans and their dangerous world. But down on Earth, humans had been watching too. Their satellites had tracked the alien ship. Their radio telescopes had recorded the alien messages. When the aliens suddenly stopped talking and disappeared, human leaders knew something was wrong. In military headquarters around the world, generals looked at the data. An alien ship had come to Earth, studied them for days, then left without warning. In human experience, this usually meant one thing. The aliens were planning an attack. Defense ministers held emergency meetings. Scientists worked around the clock to understand alien technology. Military planners began preparing Earth's defenses for an invasion that might come at any time. Neither side understood what had really happened. The aliens thought humans were bloodthirsty monsters who fought for fun. The humans thought the aliens were scouts for an invasion fleet. Both sides were preparing for a war that neither actually wanted. But in the cold darkness of space, misunderstanding was growing into something much more dangerous. The galaxy was about to learn why you should never assume you understand a species just by watching their television shows. 6 months after the quarantine began, panic spread across the galaxy. The reason was simple. Human ships had been spotted at the edge of Council space. Ambassador Kethara of the Crystalline Hegemony was the first to see the reports. Her crystal body changed from calm blue to terrified red as she read the intelligence briefing. 3 human vessels had appeared near the Proxima trade routes. They were not attacking, but they were definitely there. How did they get past the quarantine? She asked her aide. We don't know, Ambassador. They just appeared. Our sensors show they are broadcasting messages of peaceful exploration. Kethara's crystals turned darker red. Peaceful exploration? After what we know about their species? This must be some kind of psychological warfare. The news reached the council chambers within hours. Species representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. The great hall buzzed with worried voices speaking in dozens of languages. Council Speaker Zoraneth called for order. His tentacles waved nervously as he addressed the crowd. Fellow beings, we face a crisis. The human Deathworlders have somehow escaped their quarantine. We must decide how to respond. Dr. Velnari stood to present her latest findings. In the months since first contact, she had studied every human broadcast she could find. What she learned had kept her awake for weeks. Honored council members, she began, her voice shaking slightly. I have discovered something terrible. The humans are not just violent for entertainment. They have been planning galactic conquest for centuries. The hall fell silent. Every being present turned to listen. I have found thousands of what humans call movies and television shows. At first I thought these were just stories, but after careful study I believe they are training materials and battle plans. She activated a holographic display. Images of human war films filled the air above the council floor. Look at this footage. Humans fighting in space with massive weapons. Humans invading other worlds. Humans destroying entire planets. They have been preparing for interstellar war for generations. A representative from the gentle folk of Andromeda fainted and had to be carried out. The ethereal beings of Zephyria began glowing bright white with fear. There's more, Dr. Velnari continued. I found documents they call video games. These are battle simulators where human children practice destroying alien civilizations. Some games show humans conquering the entire galaxy. She showed footage of humans playing strategy games, commanding fleets of starships, and building galactic empires. To the peaceful aliens, it looked like military training disguised as entertainment. The most disturbing discovery is their tactical manuals. Humans have written detailed guides on something they call asymmetric warfare. This appears to be a method of fighting where weaker forces defeat stronger ones using tactics we cannot understand. Warmaster Thaximus of the warrior caste stood up. He was a veteran of 17 galactic conflicts, feared across 3 star systems, but now his voice trembled as he spoke. I have reviewed these human tactical manuals. They describe concepts that make no logical sense. Humans speak of acceptable casualty rates. They plan for scenarios where 90% of their forces die, and they consider this a victory if they achieve their goal. The hall erupted in horrified gasps. No galactic civilization had ever conceived of such tactics. They have a strategy called Scorched Earth. Thaximus continued. When losing a battle, they destroy everything valuable so their enemies gain nothing. They would rather see their own worlds burn than surrender them intact. Ambassador Kethara's crystals had turned completely black with terror. What kind of species thinks like this? A species from a death world, Dr. Velnari answered. I have studied their planet's history. Earth is a class Duathin death world where everything tries to kill everything else. Humans evolved as apex predators in an environment so hostile that normal beings would die within minutes. She showed images of Earth's wildlife. Lions hunting zebras, sharks attacking seals, spiders eating flies. To species that evolved on peaceful worlds, it looked like a planet-sized horror movie. Their entire evolution was based on violence. They had to become the most dangerous creatures on their world just to survive. Now they want to do the same thing to our galaxy. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Human entertainment showed them conquering space. Their games let them practice destroying alien civilizations. Their military manuals described tactics so brutal that experienced warriors fainted reading them. But the council was missing crucial context. They didn't understand that human movies were fiction, not training films. They didn't know that video games were entertainment, not battle simulators. They didn't realize that military manuals were written for wars against other humans, not alien species. Most importantly, they didn't understand why humans fought so fiercely. The council saw the violence but missed the love behind it. They saw the tactics but not the values those tactics protected. We have 3 human ships in our space right now, Speaker Zoraneth announced. They claim to come in peace. But we know the truth. This is the beginning of their invasion. The council voted unanimously to mobilize the defense fleets. Within days, warships from dozens of worlds began moving toward human space. The largest military force in galactic history was assembling to fight 3 small exploration vessels. On those human ships, Captain Sarah Chen was trying to understand why her peaceful mission had caused such panic. Her ship, the UES Determination, carried scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts. They had come to make friends, not enemies. Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movements in this sector, reported her navigation officer. At least 200 alien vessels are heading our way. Sarah frowned. 200 ships to greet 3 exploration vessels? That seems excessive. Her communications officer looked up from his station. Captain, I've been monitoring alien broadcasts. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. They seem to think we're here to invade. Invade? Sarah laughed. We brought art, music, and literature. What kind of invasion force brings poetry? But across space, the alien fleets continued to gather. Fear was spreading faster than any human ship could travel. Entire star systems were evacuating their populations. Trade routes were shutting down. The galactic economy was collapsing as everyone prepared for the human invasion. Dr. Velnari published her final report on human psychology. She concluded that humans were incapable of peaceful coexistence. Their violent nature made them a threat to all civilized life. The only solution was to contain them permanently or face galactic destruction. The report was distributed to every council member. Military academies used it to train their officers. News networks broadcast warnings about the human threat. Meanwhile, on Earth, human leaders were watching the alien fleet movements with growing alarm. Hundreds of alien warships were gathering just outside the solar system. Earth's small exploration mission had apparently triggered a massive military response. They're preparing to attack, concluded General Morrison. Earth's top military strategist. Our peaceful contact mission has been interpreted as a threat. How do we respond to a force that large? Asked President Chen. General Morrison looked grim. We do what humans have always done when facing impossible odds. We get creative. Earth's military began preparing for a war they didn't want against an enemy they didn't understand. They activated every defense system, recalled all human vessels, and began planning strategies that would soon terrify the galaxy even more. Both sides were now convinced the other was planning an attack. Both sides were preparing for war. Neither side understood that this entire crisis was built on a foundation of misunderstanding and fear. The stage was set for the most unnecessary conflict in galactic history. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, looking at the massive alien fleet surrounding her small exploration group. 200 warships from dozens of different species had formed a barrier around the 3 human vessels. The aliens weren't attacking, but they weren't letting the humans leave either. Captain, incoming transmission from the alien fleet, reported Communications Officer Martinez. They're demanding we surrender for processing. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Processing? What kind of processing? Unknown, ma'am. But they keep mentioning something called therapeutic pacification. Sarah had been a diplomat for 15 years. She had handled difficult negotiations, cultural misunderstandings, and even hostile first contacts. But she had never encountered anything like this situation. Open a channel to their fleet commander, she ordered. Let's try to figure out what's going on. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a walking crystal formation. The being's body was shifting between different colors, currently a nervous yellow-green. I am Ambassador Kithera of the Crystalline Hegemony, the alien said. You will surrender immediately for the safety of all galactic civilization. Ambassador, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of Earth. We're on a peaceful exploration mission. We're not here to threaten anyone. The crystal being turned bright red. Peaceful? Your species doesn't know the meaning of that word. We have studied your military doctrine. We know what you're planning. Sarah was confused. Our military doctrine? Ambassador, we're scientists and diplomats. We don't have any military doctrine for space warfare. Don't lie to us. Kethera's crystals flashed angry colors. We have seen your tactical manuals. We know about your asymmetric warfare strategies. We know about your willingness to accept massive casualties for minor tactical gains. Sarah looked at her crew. They all seemed as confused as she was. Ambassador, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Perhaps we could meet in person to discuss this? The alien made a sound like breaking glass. Meet in person? With humans? Are you insane? We know what your species does in close combat situations. To try to calm the situation, Sarah decided to offer a gesture of good faith. Ambassador, as a sign of our peaceful intentions, I'd like to share something with you. We've brought a collection of human culture to share with new civilizations. Our history, our art, our literature. No, screamed Kithara. We don't want your psychological warfare materials. But it was too late. The human cultural package was already transmitting. Within hours, copies were spreading across the alien communication networks. What humans considered their greatest achievements in art and culture, the aliens interpreted as the most terrifying battle plans ever conceived. In the Galactic Council's Military Analysis Center, the finest strategic minds in the galaxy were reviewing human materials. What they found made them question everything they thought they knew about warfare. General Vorthak of the Iron Legion was examining human, historical documents when he found something that made his 3 hearts stop beating. It was a human military report from something called World War II. Listen to this, he told his staff, his voice barely a whisper. The human commander reports that his forces took 75% casualties, but still considers the mission successful because they achieved their objective. His aide, Colonel Mextar, looked at the numbers again. Sir, that means 3/4 of their army died and they called it a victory. That's not the worst part. General Vorthak continued reading. It says here they had backup plans for scenarios with 90% casualty rates. They actually planned for nearly their entire army to die. The military analysts couldn't understand this concept. In galactic warfare, losing 10% of your forces was considered a disaster. Losing 25% meant total defeat. But humans planned for battles where almost everyone would die, and they still expected to win. Colonel Mextar found another document. Sir, look at this tactical manual section. It's called Fighting to the Last Man. General Vorthak read it and immediately called for medical assistance. The document described scenarios where human forces would continue fighting, even when completely surrounded, outnumbered, and facing certain death. They would fight until every single soldier was gone. What kind of species thinks like this? Whispered Colonel Mextar. But the truly horrifying discovery came when they found human contingency plans. Earth's military had detailed strategies for fighting wars under impossible conditions. They had plans for fighting in zero gravity, underwater, underground, in toxic atmospheres, and even during natural disasters. The aliens found a document titled Military Operations in Zombie Apocalypse Scenarios, and several officers had to be sedated. They have battle plans for fighting undead armies, reported Major Klixana. They've actually thought about how to conduct military campaigns when their own dead soldiers come back to life as enemies. The Galactic Military Command was in chaos. These humans had contingency plans for situations that no sane species would ever consider. They had tactical manuals for fighting aliens, robots, mutants, and creatures from other dimensions. Dr. Velnari was analyzing human cultural materials when she made another disturbing discovery. Humans had something called rules of war. At first this seemed encouraging. Perhaps humans had some limits on their violence. Then she read what the rules actually said. They had to create laws to stop themselves from being too violent, she reported to the council. These rules exist because humans were doing things so terrible in warfare that they frightened themselves. The rules of war banned weapons that were too cruel, tactics that were too brutal, and treatment of prisoners that was too harsh. But the fact that humans needed these rules proved they were capable of even worse violence than their already terrifying standard tactics. Look at this historical document, Dr. Velnari continued. During their siege of Stalingrad, human forces fought for 200 days in the ruins of a destroyed city. They fought in sewers, basements, and bombed out buildings. The battle continued even when both sides were starving and freezing to death. Ambassador Kethara's crystals had turned completely black. They fought for 200 days in a dead city. Why didn't they surrender? Because surrendering is not in their psychological makeup, Dr. Velnari explained. Humans have a concept called never give up. They will continue fighting even when victory is impossible. The worst revelation came when the Council discovered human weapons development. Humans had created bombs so powerful they could destroy entire cities. Then they made bigger bombs that could destroy multiple cities. Then they made even bigger bombs just to be sure. But the truly insane part was their doctrine of mutually assured destruction. If someone attacked them with these superweapons, humans would launch enough missiles to destroy their enemy's entire civilization, even knowing it would also destroy their own. They're willing to end their own species to make sure their enemies die too, reported War Master Thaximus. This is beyond military strategy. This is cosmic suicide pact. The Galactic military leadership requested immediate psychiatric evaluation. Several senior officers had nervous breakdowns after reading human tactical manuals. Others retired and moved to remote planets where they hoped never to encounter humans again. Meanwhile, Captain Sarah Chen was still trying to establish peaceful communication. She didn't understand why sharing human culture had made the aliens even more terrified. Captain, the alien fleet is moving into attack formation, reported her tactical officer. They're demanding we submit to something called mandatory pacification therapy. Sarah was running out of options. Every peaceful gesture seemed to make things worse. Every attempt at communication increased the aliens' panic. "Ma'am, incoming priority message from Earth Command," Martinez announced. The message was brief, but alarming. Earth's long-range sensors had detected the massive alien fleet. Military commanders assumed the worst. If Sarah's diplomatic mission failed, Earth would face invasion by hundreds of alien warships. "Captain Chen," the message read, "if diplomatic solutions fail, you are authorized to implement Protocol 7. Sarah's blood ran cold. Protocol 7 was Earth's most desperate military strategy. It was designed for scenarios where humanity faced extinction. The protocol assumed Earth's defeat was inevitable, so it focused on making the victory so costly that other enemies would never dare attack humanity again. She looked around at her crew of scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts. None of them were soldiers, but if the situation continued to deteriorate, they might have to become warriors whether they wanted to or not. The irony was overwhelming. Earth had sent its most peaceful representatives to make first contact. But the galaxy's misunderstanding of human nature was turning diplomats into the very thing the aliens feared most: human warriors with nothing left to lose. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered in the Great Chamber, but instead of the usual calm debates, the hall was filled with panic, crying, and the sound of several species having nervous breakdowns. Council Speaker Zoraneth's tentacles were shaking as he called for order. His usual purple color had faded to a sickly gray. Behind him, massive screens showed the latest intelligence reports from human space, and each new piece of information was worse than the last. "Fellow beings," he began, his voice cracking, "we face the greatest threat in galactic history. The human intelligence we have intercepted shows they are preparing for something they call global thermonuclear war games." The chamber erupted in terrified screams. The peaceful ones of Harmony Prime began weeping openly. 3 representatives from different species fainted and had to be carried out by medical teams. Dr. Velnari stood at the center podium, her blue skin now pale with fear. In her hands, she held data chips containing the most horrifying intelligence ever gathered by Council forces. "The humans are not just planning to invade," she announced. "They are planning to weaponize stellar bodies. These war games appear to be practice for turning stars into weapons of mass destruction." The truth was much simpler. Earth's military was running computer simulations to understand potential threats from advanced alien civilizations. The war games were entirely theoretical exercises designed to test Earth's defensive capabilities. But to the aliens who intercepted fragments of data about planet-destroying weapons and stellar manipulation, it looked like humanity was preparing to wage war on a cosmic scale. Ambassador Kithara's crystal body was flickering between colors so rapidly it hurt to look at her. "They have contingency plans for every possible scenario," she reported. "I found a human document called Zombie Apocalypse Response Protocol. They have detailed military strategies for fighting armies of their own reanimated dead." "That's not the worst discovery," added General Vorthak, who had requested early retirement 3 times in the past week. "Human military doctrine includes something called total war. In this strategy, they convert their entire civilization into a war machine. Every factory, every resource, every citizen becomes part of their military effort." The aliens had discovered documents about human industrial capacity during World War II, when entire nations had transformed their economies for warfare. To peaceful species that barely maintained small defense forces, the idea of a civilization dedicating itself completely to war was beyond comprehension. "Look at these numbers," General Vorthak continued, his voice hollow. "During their Second World War, one human nation produced over 300,000 aircraft in 4 years. Another built 2,700 naval vessels. They turned their entire planet into a weapons factory." War Master Thaximus, the most feared military commander in the galaxy, was sitting in a corner rocking back and forth. Earlier that day, he had read about human tactics during the Battle of Stalingrad and had requested immediate psychiatric counseling. "They fight in conditions that would kill most species instantly," he mumbled to himself. "Freezing cold, no food, no shelter, surrounded by enemies, and they kept fighting for months. Months in a ruined city, eating rats and melted snow." Dr. Velnari activated another holographic display. "The psychological profile is even more disturbing. Humans have weaponized everything in their environment. I found records of them using kitchen utensils, farming tools, children's toys, and even pieces of furniture as weapons." She showed historical examples of human improvised weapons. To the aliens, it looked like a species so inherently violent that they could turn any object into an instrument of death. "They created weapons from cooking implements," she continued. "They sharpened dinner knives into daggers. They used kitchen pots as armor. They turned their children's baseball bats into clubs. The worst revelation came when the Intelligence Division reported on human training methods. Council analysts had discovered footage of human military exercises and interpreted them in the most terrifying way possible. They practiced something called survival training, reported Intelligence Chief Mordan. "Humans intentionally put themselves in life-threatening situations to prepare for warfare. They go without food for days, sleep in freezing conditions, and navigate through hostile terrain while carrying heavy equipment. The aliens watched footage of human soldiers crawling through mud, jumping from aircraft and learning to fight with their bare hands. To species that had evolved in peaceful environments, it looked like the most brutal military conditioning imaginable. Their special forces undergo training that would be considered torture by our standards, Morden continued. They stay awake for days, survive in wilderness areas without supplies, and practice resisting interrogation by actually being interrogated. Several more council members requested medical attention after hearing this report, but the final straw came when Dr. Velnari presented her analysis of human rules of engagement. She had discovered military manuals that described when and how humans were allowed to use violence, and the implications were horrifying. They have written guidelines for violence, she reported, rules that specify exactly how much force they can use in different situations. The fact that they need these rules proves they are naturally inclined to use maximum violence at all times. She showed the council documents about proportional response, rules of war and civilian protection protocols. But to alien minds that rarely considered violence at all, these looked like detailed instructions for managing an inherently bloodthirsty nature. Look at this section, she continued. It describes scenarios where humans are authorized to use deadly force. The list includes dozens of situations where they are legally permitted to kill other beings. Council Speaker Zoraneth was openly sobbing now. What have we discovered? What kind of monsters are we dealing with? The session was interrupted by an urgent communication from the fleet surrounding the human ships. Admiral Kreshta appeared on the main screen, his usual calm demeanor replaced by visible terror. Council members, he reported, the humans have rejected our demand for surrender. Worse, they are requesting a face-to-face diplomatic meeting. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of several species hyperventilating. A trap, whispered Ambassador Cathara. They want to get close enough to use their hand-to-hand combat skills or they want to study our physiology to develop species-specific weapons, added Dr. Velnari. Admiral, Kreshta's image flickered as interference disrupted the transmission. There's more. Long-range sensors detect massive movement in their home system. Hundreds of human vessels are moving toward our position. This was actually Earth's defense fleet responding to what they perceived as an alien invasion threat. But to the Council, it looked like the beginning of the human conquest they had been dreading. They're coming, Speaker Zoraneth said quietly. The invasion has begun. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives were screaming, crying, and fleeing toward the exits. Emergency protocols were activated across the galaxy as the news spread. Humanity was coming. Dr. Velnari stood alone at the podium, watching the greatest civilization in galactic history collapse into panic because they had watched too many human movies and misunderstood a species that just wanted to make friends. On the UES determination, Captain Sarah Chen was watching the alien fleet with growing concern. Her peaceful diplomatic mission had somehow triggered a galactic crisis, and she still didn't understand why. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command, reported Martinez. Fleet Admiral Zhang is en route with the Home Defense Squadron. Sarah closed her eyes. The Home Defense Squadron was Earth's most powerful military force. If it arrived while tensions were this high, her diplomatic mission would become a shooting war. She had one last chance to prevent disaster. Opening a channel to the alien fleet, she tried one more time to establish peaceful communication. This is Captain Sarah Chen of Earth, she broadcast to the alien ships. We are explorers, not conquerors. We came here to learn, to share, to build friendship between our species. Please let us talk. Let us explain who we really are. The response came from Council Speaker Zoraneth himself, his voice filled with desperation and fear. Humans of Earth, the Galactic Council offers you one final chance. Submit to therapeutic pacification and psychological rehabilitation, or face the combined military might of 17 galactic civilizations. Sarah realized with growing horror that there had been a massive misunderstanding, but she didn't know how to fix it. Every peaceful gesture had been interpreted as a threat. Every cultural exchange had been seen as psychological warfare. Time was running out. The human fleet was approaching from one direction. Alien reinforcements were arriving from another, and in the middle, two species that should have been friends were preparing to destroy each other over a misunderstanding that neither side fully comprehended. The fate of galactic civilization hung in the balance. And it all depended on whether anyone could figure out the truth before the shooting started. The moment of truth came when Dr. Elena Martinez stepped out of the human shuttle onto the council station. She was Earth's newly appointed Director of Interspecies Relations, a job that had been created specifically for this crisis. Behind her walked Captain Sarah Chen and a small team of human diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts. The alien delegation waiting for them was clearly terrified. Ambassador Cathara's crystal body was flickering between nervous yellow and frightened white. Council Speaker Zoraneth's tentacles were wrapped around himself like he was trying to hide. Several alien representatives were standing behind force fields, and at least 6 had medical personnel standing by. Honored beings of the Galactic Council, Dr. Martinez began in perfect galactic standard. I believe we need to have a serious conversation about what it means to be human. Speaker Zoraneth's voice shook as he replied. Before you begin your psychological warfare, know that we have taken precautions. This station is surrounded by our finest military vessels. Any aggressive action will result in immediate retaliation. Dr. Martinez looked genuinely confused. Psychological warfare? Sir, I'm a professor of anthropology. I study cultures. The only warfare I've ever engaged in is academic debates about research methods. She activated a holographic projector and displayed an image of Earth from space. Let me start by explaining something about my planet. You've classified it as a Class 3 death world, and that's actually correct. Earth is an incredibly dangerous place. The aliens leaned forward nervously, expecting to hear about human weapons and conquest plans. Every single day, Dr. Martinez continued, my planet tries to kill everything living on it. We have storms that destroy entire cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that bury whole regions in ash, diseases that can wipe out entire populations, and that's just the planet itself. She changed the display to show Earth's wildlife. Then there are the other inhabitants. We share our world with creatures that see us as food. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks, venomous snakes, poisonous spiders, and thousands of other predators that evolved specifically to kill and eat other living things. Ambassador Cathara's crystals shifted to a curious blue. But how do you survive in such conditions? That's exactly my point, Dr. Martinez smiled. We survived by becoming very, very good at staying alive. And the main way we stayed alive was by working together. She displayed images of human families, communities, and nations. Everything you've seen about human violence you need to understand in context. Yes, we fight. But we don't fight because we enjoy violence. We fight because we love something enough to protect it. The hologram showed human soldiers. But now Dr. Martinez explained what the aliens were actually seeing. When you watched our military training, you saw what you thought was preparation for conquest. But you missed the most important part. Look at this footage again. Watch what happens when one soldier gets hurt. The aliens watched as a human soldier fell during training. Immediately, his companions stopped their exercise to help him. They carried him to safety, called for medical assistance, and stayed with him until help arrived. We don't train to hurt others, Dr. Martinez explained. We train to protect each other. Every tactic you found terrifying, every strategy you couldn't understand, exists because we value the lives of the people we love more than we value our own lives. Dr. Velnari, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. But the casualty rates, your willingness to accept massive losses, how do you explain that? Dr. Martinez's expression became serious. Dr. Velnari, what would you do if someone threatened to destroy everyone you cared about? I would try to negotiate, find a peaceful solution. And if negotiation failed, if talking didn't work, if the only way to save your family, your friends, your entire species was to fight a battle you probably couldn't win, Dr. Velnari was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. We do know, Dr. Martinez said gently. We've been in that situation thousands of times throughout our history. And every time we've decided that some things are worth dying for. Freedom is worth dying for. Justice is worth dying for. The people we love are worth dying for. She changed the display to show human art, literature, and music. Everything you thought was military planning? These are stories, fiction, entertainment. We tell stories about war because war has been a big part of our history, but we also tell stories about peace, love, friendship, and hope. Captain Sarah Chen stepped forward. The movies you found showing us conquering space, those are dreams, not plans. We dream about exploring the galaxy, meeting new friends, learning about other cultures. When we imagine going to the stars, we imagine it as a great adventure where we'll discover wonderful things and meet amazing people. Like you, Dr. Martinez added, looking around at the alien representatives. When we detected your ships near Earth, our first reaction wasn't fear or anger. It was excitement. We've been hoping to meet other intelligent species for centuries. We wanted to learn from you, share with you, maybe even become friends with you. Speaker Zoraneth's tentacles began to unwind slightly. You came here to be friends? That was always the plan, Captain Chen confirmed. Dr. Martinez showed them the real cargo manifest. Dr. Martinez displayed a list of everything the human ships had brought. Art, music, literature, scientific discoveries, mathematical proofs, historical documents, philosophical works, and recipes for chocolate cake. This is what we brought to share with new civilizations. The silence in the room stretched for several minutes. Finally, Dr. Velnari spoke. The zombie apocalypse protocols? Dr. Martinez laughed, a sound that made several aliens jump nervously until they realized it was an expression of happiness. Those are from movies and video games. Humans love scary stories. We make up fictional monsters and then create fictional plans for fighting them. It's entertainment, not military preparation. The rules of war? Asked General Vorthak. Those exist because we learn from our mistakes, Dr. Martinez replied seriously. Yes, humans can be violent. Yes, we've done terrible things to each other in the past. The rules of war exist because we decided we didn't want to do those terrible things anymore. We created laws to limit our own potential for violence. Ambassador Kethara's crystals had shifted to a warm golden color. So when you say never surrender, you don't mean you'll fight until you destroy everyone? We mean we'll never stop trying to protect the people and things we love, Captain Chen explained. If someone threatened this station right now with all of you on it, we would fight to defend you. Because you're not our enemies. You're our potential friends, and friends are worth protecting. The breakthrough moment came when Dr. Martinez showed them footage of human children playing. Not the combat sports the aliens had seen before, but simple games of tag, hide and seek, and make-believe. This is what human children actually do most of the time, she said gently. They play, they laugh, they hug their parents. They learn about sharing and kindness and cooperation. Yes, we teach them to be strong because our world is dangerous, but mainly we teach them to be good. Dr. Velnari was staring at the images of human families. They're not training warriors. They're raising children. Exactly, Dr. Martinez nodded. Just like every other species in the galaxy. The transformation in the room was remarkable. Fear was slowly being replaced by curiosity. Suspicion was giving way to understanding. The aliens began asking questions about human culture, human history, and human dreams for the future. Speaker Zoraneth made the formal announcement 3 hours later. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, the quarantine of the Sol system is hereby lifted. Humanity is invited to join the galactic community as full members with all rights and privileges thereof. The celebration lasted for days. Humans and aliens exchanged stories, shared meals, and began planning joint exploration missions. The cultural exchange program became so popular that a waiting list developed for aliens who wanted to visit Earth. Dr. Velnari became humanity's biggest advocate in the council. She published a best-selling book called Understanding Deathworld Psychology: Why Humans Fight Because They Love. The book became required reading in xenobiology programs across the galaxy. But perhaps the most significant development was the establishment of the Human Cultural Context Institute. Staffed by volunteer therapists from 14 different worlds, the institute helped other species understand humanity's unique perspective on life, death, and the values worth defending. The institute's first major project was training the Council's military academies. Human tactics, properly understood, revolutionized galactic defense strategy. The concept of asymmetric warfare, once terrifying, became a standard part of military education. The willingness to accept casualties to protect others became the highest ideal of military service. War Master Thaximus, who had requested retirement after reading about human military history, instead became the galaxy's foremost expert on human tactical philosophy. He taught courses on protective aggression and the psychology of defensive combat. Humans taught us something we had forgotten, he explained to his students. Sometimes the best way to preserve peace is to be prepared for war. Not because you want to fight, but because you love something enough to defend it.